And $115 million is a grotesque amount of money to spend on it, so you should get rid of it to save taxpayer money.
Equity does exist in the Constitution, and it does actively exist in the government.
Yes, I just proved to you that they're on pace for $1 trillion in cuts. But even if it's only $1 billion or $2 billion, that's admirable and noble.
The student is saying that, are the cuts going to be worth it?
Good. I just want to drill in a bit about DOGE and some of the what.
Quick, we've done it like 5 or 6 times.
And about some of these like hirings and some of the unconstitutional moves they've been making. I don't like to be more useful here. When your claim is that you're trying to like make the government more efficient, and then you arbitrarily fire a bunch of people. Like, for example, for the nuclear people, a bunch of them were fired, and then they had to get them back. You're wasting time and effort by randomly just and arbitrarily picking how to handle these cases. If your claim is that you want to be efficient, you should just government immediately start firing people. You have to like go over this with a lot more methodical effort, and that's not what's happening. And on top of that, the DOGE administration will not save enough money. Even if you were to fire every single government employee, they would not even be able to get to a fraction of how much revenue we need to get for taxes. That's not enough, and it's not helpful.
No, I mean, I have these placards.
And when you go over those placards, you can flash them and say that like.
I mean, it's $115 million.
Yes.
For equity assessment programs. That's a lot of money.
No, it is not. And with regards compared
this
to
not a lot of money
compared to how much we need.
Okay, what you're watching now is Charlie Kirk debating college students on the topic at hand is DOGE. I do want him to address what the student just directly said rather than arbitrarily holding up a sign that says this is a lot of money. I don't think that's a really fair strategy. Yes, $115 million is a lot of money. Everyone would say that, but I want you to actually debate him on what he just said. That's what we're here to see. So let's get into it.
To run the country.
Hold on. This is a very important point you're making.
We're talking about scale here. About $2.6 trillion of revenue comes from our income taxes. If you're going to make these cuts, you need to meaningfully account for them.
This is a false argument. I'm glad you're making it, which is that we shouldn't cut it because it's not that big of a deal.
No, that's not what I mean.
So should we cut this? $115 million for equity assessment of existing program policies.
The point is that.
So the point of this, what the student is making, and I don't want to really defend one side or the other. I'm here for the debate. Who's going to win the debate? What the student's saying is that if you want to make long-lasting government change, cutting $115 million will not make a substantial difference in long-term change if you're trying to save trillions of dollars worth of space. What he's doing is saying this. Let's say you have an iPhone, for example, and you are at a storage on the iPhone, the storage being the money that the government has. We're at 99% storage, and you cut 0.3% storage, but it takes you 7 weeks, and all your resources to cut 0.3% of the storage. That's not a big change. That's kind of what the student is saying. Charlie Kirk does make a fair point in saying that just because it's a small amount doesn't mean that it shouldn't be cut. That is true. Let's continue.
I'm going to make the point, but do you think this should be cut?
It depends. You need to make the argument that it's actually good. You can't just flash the dollar.
No, I'm going to flash
and
it.
And then say
equity assessments of existing program policies, $115 million.
Yes, you have to justify that this program is helpful or not. You have to justify the existence of the program.
Yes, it should not exist.
Why? Why does it not exist?
Well, first of all, the president signed an executive order saying no more DEI. Okay. Equity assessment should have no place in the U.S. government because equity is not constitutional. It's not in the U.S. Constitution. It's not an American value. Why? It's about redistribution. And $115 million is a grotesque amount of money to spend on it. So you should get rid of it to save taxpayer money. Now,
but I will say this. Equity does exist in the Constitution, and it does actively exist in the government. And I'm not just arbitrarily saying this. I'm a government employee, so I know equity exists. If you look at Donald Trump's executive order to slash DEI, in Section 7 of that order, he outlines that do not slash it for veterans. If you don't know, veterans get preferential hiring in the federal government, so that is a form of equity. However, he makes a fair point. If the president says slash it, then you slash it. But equity exists in the government when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I don't really know about all that, but equity definitely exists when it comes to the way veterans are given preferential treatment. The because if you want to get hired from the government, you have to have like certain educational things. They kind of sway that for veterans because they were fighting in the war, which makes sense. But let's continue.
It's not
to your
saving
point.
taxpayer money.
It's $115 million to get rid of this. Now, it's also $144 million here of empty buildings. How about empty buildings?
Again, you can't just say empty building.
Well,
you have to like go over a detail.
No, we did. That's why there's 97 of them. They reviewed the leases.
Yes.
They're vacated
Yes.
because of COVID. That's $144 million. So right here, I have $330 million. We're going to keep going, right?
Yeah, you can keep doing that.
No,
but you have to actually just justify like why the policies
see,
are helpful or not.
this is
They
what's
can
interesting.
Like you can say how much they cost.
Hold on
but
a
if
second.
they do something useful for the government, then their prices make sense.
They're empty buildings. What use is happening for them other than landlords getting rich for nothing? The point is this. You think the government is innocent until proven guilty. I think the government, after what we've learned, is guilty until proven innocent. They have to justify why this money is being spent in the first place.
Wait a minute. That's how the law works. Innocent until proven guilty. You have to prove that
That's not how taxpayer money works, though. It's that if we find waste, you're going to have to over-justify why this exists in the first place.
Yeah,
Secondly,
but you just
hold on.
fire them. You just like get rid of the program automatically before like you've done the work.
But let me go back to one more thing. This is an argument they're making. Oh, it's not that much money. Even if you only save $100 in taxpayer money, that is a moral fight worth having. That attitude is why we're $35 trillion in debt. Secondly, which is very important, if you annualize DOGE's savings, you know how much they're on pace to save this year? $1 trillion. $1 trillion, which would then get us on path for a balanced budget. They're on pace because you say, oh, it's only $1 billion here. They've been in for 6 weeks. They've already saved $100 billion. By December, they'll be at $1 trillion. Our deficit is $1.6 trillion. We're going to lower our deficit in such an increasingly important way, and you're going to learn that you actually don't need these government agencies to run a country, that these people are unnecessary, it's bloated, these bureaucrats don't do anything all day long, and we need to right-size it because we're a nation in debt. We know we're $35 trillion in debt.
Yes.
In debt.
Yes.
And the only way we're going to get out of it is if we're honest, be like, how about no more empty buildings? No more $115 for equity assessment program. Biodiversity in Nepal, $19 million?
Again, those can be important. You have to those could be helpful.
Okay, so how could biodiversity in Nepal for $19 million? We spent $20 million for a new Sesame Street in Iraq. It's true. You guys can look it up.
Yes.
$20 million for New Sesame Street in Iraq. And because no one has ever had the courage to look through the books and look and examine the expenditures.
But that's not what's happening.
No, it has happened. No, Biden, Obama, they never looked through any of the federal expenditures.
And here's the funny thing about this entire topic. Congress, this is actually Congress's job, if you guys don't know. To make sure the budget is balanced and that we're spending money appropriately is the job of Congress. So they have something called the power of the purse, meaning that Congress is supposed to make sure that government spending is good. What has been happening is that we have been overspending. That's an undeniable fact. If we keep on this rate, America's spending is unsustainable for long-term success. But Congress has kind of been ignoring this and saying, oh, we don't really care. This is someone else's job. This is why something like a Department of Government Efficiency exists. If we look at the fundamental floor of this, we shouldn't even have to need a Department of Government Efficiency that has to save money because Congress should be making sure we're spending money correctly. I will say this, though. When it comes to cutting spending and cutting funds, when it comes to the government, you shouldn't be so aggressive with cutting funds because this is not a business in the traditional sense. This is people's livelihoods at risk, not their jobs, but their functions. If you cut nuclear physicists and neurosurgeons from Veteran Affairs, some of them you won't be able to get back. These are like life-changing things. So I think my personal approach is that they should go in with a fine needle to find things and really sit down and investigate. Do we need this? Do we not need this? Rather than arbitrarily just going in and slashing everything and then saying, oh, we cut this out, let's add it back. That can work in a business. But when it comes to the government who provides the service, it's going to be much, much, much more difficult to do that. And you are prone to having much larger error. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below about that.
And we got to $35 trillion in debt. This is the first time in my lifetime we have an administration going after the waste, going after the size of government to balance the budget so that you guys don't live as indentured servants and Russian serfs for the rest of your life.
Tell him, Charlie! Tell him!
Well, I just want to say, What? Never mind.
Go ahead.
You don't need to interrupt people.
Alright,
Thank
keep
you.
going, bro. It's fine.
The point is when you want to deal with this problem, you can either increase taxes or cut spending massively. Like, the point is that like these programs aren't efficient and helpful for getting to that goal.
Yes, I just proved to you that they're on pace for $1 trillion of
You did not
cuts.
just prove that.
Like, but even if it's only $1 billion or $2 billion, that's admirable and noble. That's
But, and I get what he's saying. They are on pace to cut $1 trillion. I think there's a difference in the debate here. The student is saying that, are the cuts going to be worth it? He's not saying that, oh, we're making cuts. He's saying that, are the cuts good cuts? Charlie is not really addressing if they're good cuts. He's holding up signs saying, oh, we should cut this. Yeah, on the surface, you should cut it. What the student's saying is like, will these be good cuts? Did they actively investigate if this is a needable service? Charlie is kind of touching on some things, but he's not really addressing it. He's more so saying that cuts are cuts in general. Let's cut it all. $1 trillion in cuts is $1 trillion in cuts, point blank, period. That's what Charlie Kirk is saying. What the student is saying is, we may need some of these programs to service a people or to service us. Will they actually be good cuts? So both of them have their different perspectives. Let me know what you think in the comments below.
Just so we're,
My
so we're
point is
clear.
twofold. You have to both justify that these programs are bad, and then no, you can flash a sign. This is a program. It costs this much money. We should cut it. That's not an argument. For why the program
$1.5
is
million
good.
for voter confidence in Liberia.
Again, you can say that. You can say that.
Do you know anything about Liberia? I mean, I happen to know a lot about it, but that's a separate issue.
It's not about what I know. It's about the people in the government making these decisions.
Yes, and they have proven themselves to be robber barons over the last 20 years. They're spending your money with reckless abandon and total indiscretion. And it's time that this is what's important. It's we the people, not we the government workers. And we've taken back the government.
The government workers are also American people.
Yes, but who works for who? Do we work for them or do they work for us? Which one?
Yes. They work for us. Obviously.
They work for us, yes. So we voted in November by popular vote and electoral vote landslide that this crap is over. And that's what we're doing. We overwhelmingly spoke. And so we're going to go piece by piece, department by department, and this is why it's important. You guys deserve a future where you don't have $35 trillion in debt, where you don't have $1 trillion
You're not
deficit.
solving that problem by doing this.
Again,
That's what I mean.
$1 trillion. You have to address this. They're on pace to cut $1 trillion by December. That's big.
Charlie Kirk, and I get it, he's saying they're on pace to cut $1 trillion. The problem is that he's not saying if the cuts are actually good cuts. He's holding up signs that are like, on the surface, good cuts. But when it comes to making real cuts, there has to be some level of research on behind if this is actually a good cut. And I'm not sitting here saying that they didn't make any good cuts. What I'm saying is you don't know on the surface. You need to actually study if it's a good cut. You need to actually do research on if it's a good cut. I agree with that because think of the analogy like a phone. If I delete Navy Federal or if I delete the Messages app off of my phone, or if I delete all my photos, I'm going to save storage. But what if I need those photos? What if I need my banking app on my phone? That's kind of, I get what Charlie Kirk is saying, but the student is saying that, are these actually good cuts? Just because you cut money doesn't mean it's good money. And also when it comes to federal workers and stuff, working for the people, that's very true. Federal workers basically say an oath that they will serve the American people, and that's their job to do it. I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding. Federal workers also, pay taxes and stuff. So technically, do they work for themselves? Or if you work for the taxpayer, if you also work for the taxpayer and you pay taxes, does that mean you work for yourself? I don't know. It's like a hamster wheel, just revolves around itself. But anyways, let's continue.
Big. That's 75% of our deficit.
Okay. But my point is that you have to meaningfully increase taxes or cut something
don't.
cuts. Yes, you do.
Well, I know that's what he's doing. They are meaningfully cutting spending.
You have to cut tax. You either raise taxes.
No, you don't.
Or massively cut spending.
Got it. Let me just ask one final question.
Yes.
If Trump and Elon get this done and balance the budget and cut all this, will you give them credit?
It depends on how successful. Wait, I am not finished speaking. Oh my God! It depends on how successful the country is afterwards. It depends. If you make a lot of cuts and the country becomes worse, then you didn't do your job.
I think.
Okay.
That's a fair thing to say. Right now you don't really know. So everything we're debating is subjective. You don't really know how effective it's going to be. Are these good cuts? I can't tell you. You may know insider information, but I don't know insider information on if these are good or bad cuts. You just have to wait and see. That's just really all I can give you. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I will give them credit if there are good cuts and America is extremely successful after. I do disagree with the student that you don't just have to make cuts or raise taxes. That's not really how it works. Donald Trump actually did raise taxes recently for the majority of Americans in his tax plan. He lowered it for if you make more than, I want to say, $350,000. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this video. Let me know who you think won this debate. It was a pretty good debate. And if you support Doge or don't support them. Anyways, my name is Elafar JOJO, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.